This is The Healthy Healer, where true voice is your medicine. This is where we help doctors and other healers navigate through the challenging times by learning from the best minds in the healing industry. Laugh, cry, and be surprised. It's entertainment, education, and inspiration so you can continue to be the unique and amazing healer you were destined to be. Welcome to humanity. Welcome to The Healthy Healer with Dr. Fred.
So this week we had a genius on, a young man who lives on an island in Thailand, who grew up in India in multiple spiritual journeys associated with his upbringing. People in his life who introduced him to multiple ways to look at what it really means to be human. He is so articulate and really speaks to a methodology that he designed that he calls unique, a combination of so many different philosophies and approaches to what it means to be a human being, ontologically, epistemologically, and otherwise. It's a man who has developed a program that includes proto-self, autobiographic self, and then true self, and takes into consideration how I am and I can are signs of power that we can implement ourselves by taking on a new belief system. And since our thoughts are happening at the same time as our words, it is his understanding that we can hear our thoughts by listening to what we say. And once we do that, we can actually alter what we say and actually believe a new thing, a new way of looking at reality. But by doing that, we have to actually believe what it is that we say if it's inconsistent with what we said when we thought what we were saying was. So this is not simple, and this is something that Sanal speaks to. And we start looking at what does it really mean to believe? What is our perception? What is it that how do we see the world? Because that dictates how we see the world. Or that dictates what we believe, and what we believe then is the lens that colors our thoughts and our associated feelings. He speaks to how our speech often has a feeling equivalent associated with it, and we can get in touch with that by stopping our thoughts, or at least halting as we're thinking, find our feeling and undo it, or create a new feeling as a function of that, which then creates a new way of being, which allows us to find freedom in the face of the victimhood that we may have been experiencing up until that time. This seems like it's complicated, and perhaps I might have butchered up a little bit what the approach was that Sanal spoke to in the interview. But for me, it really resonated as a possibility. This is someone who really understands that if we look at life from a powerful perspective and actually believe that we have everything we want and everything we need to take on anything coming down the pike, and that the way that we know that is we're already here, so we've handled everything up until now. And the fear of not being able to handle something doesn't have to translate into a notion that we are flimsy or we are fragile or incapable or disempowered in any way. We, in fact, can flip the whole story around and come up with just as many victories as defeats, and look at our life from the perspective or from the context of those victories. I really found the conversation to be enlightening and compelling, and this is a man who really has created a way of seeing the world and a way of being in the world in a very convincing way, and then using his language to convey it to those people who may not have any clue about how this all works. So he uses the be, do, have model in a sequence that we get to be somebody, and then we do what we do based on who we be, and then we get what we have based on what we've done. So he has it again, and this is something I agree with, that we can be connected to our power by altering how we see the world. This is fairly consistent with landmark technology as well, landmark education technology, and several different philosophers. And when I asked Sanal about where he got this, hoping or thinking that he might say landmark education, he had never even heard of landmark education at the time. But that's where I got most of this in my past, at least putting together these sequences. So I invite you to listen to what Sanal has to say by finding him on Instagram, or by finding him at Wisdom and Spirituality Wisdom with Sanal, I believe. We'll look at it's with, I guess you'll have to look at the show notes below to get a handle on what that is, because I don't have the actual website on my fingertips. So he looks at wisdom, and he calls his type of spirituality spiritual logic, which I really appreciate as well. It's a good twist on words and allows us to see where he's coming from when he creates his framework. So it's a deep pleasure to speak with him this week. I liked resonating with him, asking the questions I could, and keeping him on board and online. It's really something that I also find fascinating, and I think each of us should know that we can reach an empowered state no matter where we're coming from by simply altering our beliefs, which is a function of the perceptions we have about how the world is happening to us, and then allowing ourselves to think different thoughts by getting in touch with the feelings, sometimes the physical feelings associated with those thoughts, and altering those from the ground up so that we can take on a new belief and become a new person, an empowered person, a grounded person, one with agency, in the face of having maybe even had a long history of accepting defeat as the default. So thank you very much, and it's an honor to be with you as well. I appreciate that you're here for this podcast, and if you like this podcast and the one during the week, please make sure to comment, share, and please also consider subscribing, as this is what allows us to bring these conversations to people who might really be interested in hearing them. Thanks again, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye for now.